Bill Skarsgard says it. Welcome to Derry explores things that weren't covered in the movies. Bill Skarsgard discusses what it was like to reprise the role of Pennywise, the evil clown, in the TV series It. Welcome to Derry. All right, so let's get into these details. I mean, obviously, if you've seen the original It, and if you've seen the two, we'll call them reboot remakes of the original film, with Bill starring in them, you know, you've heard me say this before, if you're going to do a TV series, if you're going to continue to do films with the character, around the character, if and when you can, try to bring back the original actors and actresses to reprise those roles. It just makes it, for me, and I'm sure many would share this opinion, it just, whether it's a transition to a sequel, whether it's, in this case, you're telling a prequel story, I think it just makes the transition much cleaner and easier for the audience, where you have it feel very seamless as to how the character acts, behaves, because it's the same individual playing the role. So let's get into these details. The upcoming TV series It, Welcome to Derry, which will serve as a prequel to Warner Brothers' two-part adaptation of the classic Stephen King novel It, was originally meant to be for Max streaming service, but we recently learned that it will be airing on HBO as well, which is good. I think it just gives it more exposure, gives not just the show more exposure, the property more exposure, and ultimately horror genre more exposure. So I think the more we get of that, the better. The show went into production in Port Hope, Ontario at the end of last year, aiming for a 2025 premiere, and wrapped in August after 237 shooting days. Bill Skarsgard came back to reprise the role of Pennywise, the evil clown, and during an interview with SFX magazine, Skarsgard discussed what it was like to play Pennywise again, hyping up the show a bit without revealing anything, which I wouldn't expect him to really give out any spoilers. Stephen King had this to say about the series: "I'm excited that the story of Derry, Maine's most haunted city, is continuing, and I'm glad Andy Muschietti is going to be overseeing the frightening festivities, along with a brain trust, including his talented sister Barbara. Red balloons all around." The Muschiettis added, quote, "As teenagers, we took turns reading chapters of Stephen King's It until the thick paperback fell to pieces. It is an epic story that contains multitudes far beyond what we could explore in our It movies. We can't wait to share the depths of Steve's novel in its all heart, humor, humanity, and horror." So we have a bunch of casting news here. Now we'll get into what Skarsgård had to say in his quote to SFX magazine. "It was strange to be back. Andy and Barbara Muschietti were doing the show, and I adore them. Most of the crew was the same people that did the movies. So it was this weird thing of going back to this gang of people that you created this thing with. I don't know why, but Pennywise is very accessible for me. So in terms of getting back into it, it was just like da da da, and he explodes out. He's so defined. He's sort of dormant, but very easily activated. We explore things that we haven't explored in the movies, particularly one side of it, which I can't go into. I hope the fans are excited." So I mean, yeah, again, the more we can get and I'm a fan of this. I was a fan of the original. I'm a fan of the reboots. This was one I was glad to see rebooted. I think it needed to be rebooted, but it was also something. It wasn't. The franchise wasn't drawn out like some of the other horror IPs that we have, and I'm speaking even of my favorite one, Halloween. I mean, you see the Michael Myers portrait behind me. I'm a huge Halloween Michael Myers fan. However, do I feel at times that the franchise has been drawn out? Absolutely. Do I feel some of the sequels were not necessary? Absolutely. So the It franchise feels like it's one of those where it didn't put itself in that position. So when we got these reboots or / remakes, it didn't feel like, oh, we're getting another one. Now I think with this, it's nice. Okay, they've done 2 movies. Now we're going to do a prequel series. We're bringing, as Skarsgård said, he's coming back. We have some of the original creators coming back, the crew as well. So it should have a very similar feel as far as how the story will play out, which I'm excited to see. And we've covered this story on previous episodes as well. And if you haven't seen those, check them out, where we've covered off on the first released images for the show. So definitely time period piece, which I'm excited to see. Anyone that knows me knows I love time period pieces, especially when they start taking place in the 50s and 60s. So looking forward to the show. Can't wait for us to get it next year. I am interested, though, as always, to know how many episodes this will be. I do hope it's more than 8. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I am not a fan of the 8 episode series, so hopefully it'll be more than 8. So All right, so Madam Web's Celeste O'Connor will face off against Ghostface in Scream 7. Celeste O'Connor, known for her roles in Madam Web and Ghostbusters Afterlife, has joined the cast of Scream 7. The upcoming sequel will see the return of Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. After playing the role in the first 5 Scream movies, she was expected to return for the 6th until the studio lowballed her. When we all know that story, where she felt that as far as the value of the contract or what she was going to get paid, she didn't agree with, and she refused to return back for that film. And rightfully so. I mean, again, she was part of the first 5 films. You know, I mean, it's not like she was a newcomer. I think she had paid her dues, and rightfully so. She should have been paid what she was owed. She goes on to say, "I felt that the offer was presented to me did not equate to the value I brought to the franchise. It's been a very difficult decision to move on." End quote. Hopefully, they apologize with a dump truck of cash this time around. Courtney Cox is also expected to return as Gale Weathers, but she hasn't officially signed on yet. It's also possible that Patrick Dempsey might be returning as Mark Kincaid, now married to Sydney from Scream 3. It was recently announced that Isabel May had joined cast as Sydney's teenage daughter. So I'm okay if Courtney Cox doesn't return as Gale Weathers. I'm actually surprised this character hasn't already been killed off. I don't think the character is necessarily needed at this point anymore. It's kind of like, you know, I even felt Dewey went on, you know, that character went on far too long. Will be surprised if Patrick Dempsey doesn't return for this one, knowing that, again, yeah, he was in Scream 3. They alluded to after that they got married. Now that we're going to have Sydney's daughter in this, it might make sense to have Patrick Dempsey's character here. Now, whether he's there for a major role, they bring him in, they kill him off. I do, though, think it makes sense to bring him back. Because again, he was in one. He wasn't even. I mean, he was I'll say supporting role in the 3rd film. Obviously, it wasn't the major role, but nonetheless, he was there a good portion of the time. However, if this is going to be more focused on Sydney and her daughter and, like, you know, her and her family, it would then just make sense to have him there. Whether you kill him off or not, it would just make sense. The original plan for Scream 7 would have seen Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega returning as Sam and Tara Carpenter, but Spyglass Media fired Barrera after some social media post. The very next day, it was revealed that Ortega had exited the project as well. It was initially reported that this was due to scheduling conflicts with the 2nd season of Wednesday, but it later emerged that she wanted a substantial salary increase, which Spyglass refused, so she walked. I mean, if you feel that that's what you're worth, and you feel that you're not getting paid what you're worth, I think in today's Hollywood, in some cases, no one's going to beg you to stay around. Most cases, they'll be willing to cancel a project or recast you. I don't think anyone's really safe at this point, and obviously both of these individuals got let go, and they decided to take a different approach with Scream 7. And obviously they're going to be spending some money bringing Neve Campbell back, and if they bring back Patrick Dempsey, then they're going to be spending even more money. So if it's less of a headache for them to deal with those actors and actresses versus these two, then, you know, it is what it is. That wasn't the end of the drama either. Christopher Landon was set to direct the movie, but he has also departed, calling it a dream job that turned into a nightmare. The CEO then turned to Kevin Williamson, screenwriter of the original Scream movie, to direct. Upon the announcement, Neve Campbell said, "While I've been so incredibly lucky to make these films, with both the master of horror Wes Craven and the wonderful, talented Matt and Tyler team, I've dreamt for many years of how amazing it would be to make one of these movies with Kevin Williamson at the helm, and now it's happening. Kevin Williamson is going to direct Scream 7. This was his baby and his brilliant mind that dreamt up this world. Kevin is not just an inspiration as an artist, but has been a dear friend many years." So we have a date. It's currently scheduled for February 27th, 2026. So we do have well over a year in 3 months, so 15 months before we get this, and that's assuming it even stays with this date, which I'm hoping it does. I do like the fact when we get horror movies right off the bat at the beginning of a year, I think it just really sets the tone for the rest of the year for the horror genre. So hopefully this stays where it's at. I am excited. I'm a huge fan of the Scream franchise. I have enjoyed each one of them for what they were and what they are. I don't try to look at them as anything that they're not, which is horror slasher films, especially the first few, considering when they were released. Again, they were a product at the time they were released, so again, I enjoy them for what they are. All right, so our last topic, Paul Schrader says he shouldn't have made dominant prequel to The Exorcist. Looking back on dominant prequel to The Exorcist 20 years later, director Paul Schrader says he shouldn't have made the movie. So some of you may not even know of this film or know the backstory of this film. So we're gonna get, I did, kind of go through this a little bit just to see if it would cover off on some of that backstory. So it does. So we're just going to go through some of the details here very quickly. I'm sure many of you don't know the backstory of this just because of when these two films, when this film was released, but there was actually a second one that was released as well. So in the late 90s, producer James G. Robinson and screenwriter William Wisher Jr. started developing a prequel to the 1973 horror classic The Exorcist. And no one could have predicted just how messy this project would get. Jason Lives Friday the 13th. Director Tom McLaughlin was hired to take the helm, but then dropped out due to issues with the script. John Frankenheimer took the helm, with author Caleb Carr handling rewrites. Then Frankenheimer left because his health was declining. He unfortunately passed away soon after and was replaced by Paul Schrader. Schrader was known for writing films Taxi Driver, Rolling Thunder, Raging Bull, and The Last Temptation of Christ, and has also directed several films such as Blue Collar, Hardcore, American Gigolo, Cat People, and others. During a recent interview with MovieWeb, Schrader admitted that he shouldn't have taken on the job directing dominant prequel to The Exorcist. When the subject came up, Schrader told MovieWeb, "I shouldn't have done it. It was not something I was really suited for. I thought I could pull it off, but if I had the opportunity again, I would say I think I will stick to what I do best." So now we're going to get into the details, as I was mentioning. So this wasn't just again, there are actually two films that resulted from this whole debacle. Again, many people probably don't know that. They only know of the one that this article is primarily headlined and talking about. Nonetheless, there were actually two films that resulted from this. The script for dominant prequel to The Exorcist ended up being the cobbled together work of 6 different writers, and when Warner Brothers saw the first cut of Schrader's film in 2003, they immediately called for more rewrites, reshoots, and re-edits. After butting heads with Schrader for a while, they ended up firing him and hiring Rennie Harlin to direct the reshoots, resulting in the film Exorcist: The Beginning, which was given a theatrical release in 2004. Exorcist: The Beginning underperformed at the box office. Side note, it wasn't good. And I enjoy this franchise. And I've said this many times on the show. I've said this many times in other episodes. The demonic possession subgenre of horror is one of my favorites of the overall horror genre. So I am a fan of the Exorcist franchise. I know many people, obviously you have the classic The Exorcist, then you have The Exorcist, The Heretic, then you have Exorcist 3. Many people don't like the second film. Even though Linda Blair did return for the second film, many people don't like it. Many people think Exorcist, obviously the first one is great in its own right, kicked off the franchise, and then many people believe Exorcist 3 is the next best one in the overall franchise. Even though we've had a recent one release, I think earlier this year, where did have Linda Blair return. It was brief though. It was in the last 2 minutes of the film. Even the actress who played her mother in the original film was in it as well. I saw that one. I thought for what it was good. Again, I watched some of these in a very siloed manner. So I was watching it for the story it was trying to tell on its own, even though it's connected. It was connecting itself to the original film. It was really skipping over 2 and 3 and really just going back to 1. It was almost as if it was acting like 2 and 3 never happened. Nonetheless, The Exorcist Beginning wasn't that great. The Exorcist Beginning underperformed at the box office and was a critical failure. The following month, Morgan Creek Productions started working with Schrader on getting a cut of his movie, dominant prequel to The Exorcist, out into the world. It received a limited theatrical release in 2005 and reached home video later that year. So and also to note, I own both of these. And again, I'm one of those movie people who I gotta have I feel like I have to have the complete franchise if I have a franchise. So even like with Friday the 13th, I do not enjoy all the Friday the 13th films. I would say 1 through 4 are my absolute favorite of the franchise. The rest, 5 through 10, and then you have Freddy versus Jason. They're enjoyable. Again, for what they are, they're enjoyable. But do I gravitate towards them? I don't. And that's the same like with this franchise. These two I don't gravitate towards. Every so often I'll revisit them. I'll put them in because if it's been a while since I've watched them, just to give them another watch. But they're not films I typically will go back and give another chance. Dominant, the prequel to The Exorcist, and Exorcist the Beginning both rank low in the Exorcist franchise, and a lot of horror fans would probably say that neither Schrader nor Holland should have made these Exorcist films. I agree. MovieWeb does point out that Robert Ebert was a fan of Schrader's Dominant. He wrote that the film, quote, does something risky and daring in this time of jaded horror films. It takes evil seriously. They really are dark satanic forces in the Schrader version, which takes a priest forever scared by the Holocaust and asks if he can ever again believe in the grace of God. The movie is drenched in atmosphere and dread, as we'd expect from Schrader, but it also has spiritual weight and texture, boldly confronting the possibility that Satan may be active in the world. Instead of cheap thrills, Schrader gives us frightening vision of a good priest who fears goodness may not be enough. And that's where we ended off. So, as I've said before, and I will always continue to say, if you haven't seen these films, check them out. I still think they're worth giving a chance if you like the franchise, the IP. If you like this subgenre in horror, give them a try. You may enjoy them, you may like them. I watch things in very siloed. I watch them for what they were. Do I gravitate towards them? Do I go back and watch them often? I don't. But nonetheless, I still have them as part of my Exorcist collection, for the franchise. So, all right, everyone, that's going to do it for tonight's episode. Thank you for spending just a few moments of your day with me here at Reign of Horror. It's always greatly appreciated. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, check us out on Twitter. We have our handle down here on the screen below, so check us out there. Give us a follow, where we will be posting updates, posting our links to our videos. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know, are you ready for Prequel TV series It? What do you feel about the additional casting for Scream 7? And have you seen these two prequel Exorcist films? And if you have, what do you think about them? Let us know down in the comment section, and we will see you at the next one. Peace.